Assemblyman Ryan Peters to be able to speak today, from experience about what it means to have, children in our school and what it means. And I guess I'm so grateful that, so many of you have been so supportive of our school, whether it be financially, morally, through your prayers, but we need that, and that's important because it's a choice that many people have chosen because they know it benefits their children in a wonderful way. So we thank you for coming to speak with us today.
Good evening. So first, I want to thank the parish for allowing me to come back again this year and to speak about right before Catholic Schools Week and to talk about my Catholic education, how it's impacted my life, and why my wife and I, that we sacrifice in order to provide a Catholic education for our 3 children here at OLGC. A lot has changed since I spoke here last year, but also a lot has stayed the same. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about this evening. I'll touch on a little what I said last year, but I'd also like to tell you how my faith and belief in the Catholic education has been reinforced in this tumultuous year. I was educated here at Our Lady of Good Counsel from grades 1 through 8. From here, I went to Holy Cross High School, then on to the United States Naval Academy, and later in life, I went to Rutgers University School of Law. My Catholic education has served and still serves as both an anchor and a guardrail as I navigate an often difficult and uncertain life. I entered the United States Naval Academy at a time of peace. It was during my sophomore year at the Naval Academy when the tragic events of 9/11 happened. Following that event, my classmates and I watched as President Bush told the country that we'd be going to war. Knowing that I would be going to war in 2 years, I made the decision that I wanted to be at the tip of the spear, to prevent terrorists from ever reaching our shores ever again. So I volunteered and was eventually accepted to attend basic underwater demolition SEAL training. Thanks mostly to my SEAL brothers, who unfortunately write a book or make a movie every other day, SEAL training is now well known and is regarded as the most difficult military training on the planet. When my class began training, we started with 250 sailors, all with the dream of becoming a Navy SEAL. When the smoke cleared, 8 months later, only 18 of the original 250 remained. There's a 93% attrition rate in SEAL training, and my class was no different. I had 2 phrases that ran over and over in my head throughout training. The first one was on long open ocean swims. I channeled Dory from Finding Nemo and just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. But when I wasn't swimming, I recited a Bible verse that was taught to me right here in this very church. It comes from Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Those 10 simple words, literally and figuratively, carried me through the toughest military training in the world. During Hell Week, when I had been awake for 6 days and thought I couldn't take another step, I told myself that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I could, Christ did, and he was with me the whole time. That was the anchor that kept me from drifting when self-doubt inevitably crept into my head. Following SEAL training, I had orders to go to SEAL Team 4. We were told at the end of my training cycle, we'd be deploying to Fallujah, Iraq. When the training cycle ended, I had 2 weeks before we left. As a SEAL going to a combat zone, I had no doubts about what was being asked of me to do, and it caused me to reflect on my faith, my Catholic education, and how I could square that with taking the life of another man. Not just accidentally, but with intention. So again, I came here to this very church and I met with Father Damien. I won't share exactly what we discussed, but there was a particular focus on St. Michael the Archangel as the commander of God's army against the fallen angels. I left this church confident about my mission and prepared me for a fight against evil. I also brought this with me today. This is something I've never shared with anyone. I'm not even sure my wife knows, but I think it's appropriate to share with you this evening. On every mission in Fallujah and on the next 3 combat deployments during my SEAL career, I wore this shirt under my uniform, my body armor. On the front is a picture of St. Michael. It says, "St. Michael, defend us." It's a little beat up and raggy. We got a little sweaty and a little dirty over those deployments. And the back has St. Michael's prayer. It says, "St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And you, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen." Those were the guardrails that my Catholic education provided me in Iraq and in Afghanistan. Even in a war zone, we protected the innocent and we fought against evil. Lastly, it was during my first deployment where I drifted again and needed an anchor. My platoon had a chaplain on base. He was a Catholic priest who was in the military. I called him Chaps. He was my counselor and he was my friend. One night, my platoon and I, we were in a bad spot. I looked up and I started making deals with God. Silly things like, "Hey, if you get me out of this one, I promise I'll pray 10 times a day. I'll go to Mass every morning." Well, I'm here today, so clearly we made it out. But when I got back to base that night, I talked to Chaps about it. This was not uncommon, something I did generally after missions, but his reaction that night was very different. He was angry. He told me that kings are not summoned when you need them. That stopped me cold, but his next words actually changed my life. He asked me if I've ever said the Lord's Prayer. Even though he was still mad, I laughed. I said, "Chaps, I spent 12 years in Catholic school, and are you asking me if I've ever said the Our Father? I probably said that prayer over 500,000 times." He said, "Fine, then say it." I said, "All right. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done." "Stop," he yelled. "Say it again." So I did. He said, "Thy will be done. You've said the Lord's Prayer 500,000 times. And you still don't get it, Ryan? Thy will be done." I went back to my tent that night, and there's a wooden partition on my door. And in that tent, I wrote those words, "Thy will be done." And from then on, every night, I looked at those words before I left for the mission. I prepared, I worked as hard as I could, and then I let God's will be done. I no longer had worries when I got into a Humvee and drove on roads littered with improvised explosives devices. I didn't worry what was behind the door when I entered a room. In short, I started to live my life. I left active duty and I went to law school. After graduation, I studied for 12 hours a day till I walked into a room to take the bar exam, and then I let God's will be done. I won 3 political campaigns, 1 for county freeholder, 2 for state assembly. I campaigned as hard as I could, and then I let thy will be done. Even today, last night I was thinking about these remarks and what I was going to say tonight. And while I was doing that, I looked at my phone. I saw that I had a message. And it was from the brother of my Naval Academy classmate. And he informed me that my roommate of 4 years had just died in his sleep. Now, as crushing that is and still remains, faith anchors me and just stops me from curling into a ball and giving up. That perspective comes from a foundation that was provided me here at Our Lady of Good Counsel. Life is going to challenge you. Life is going to test you. And your faith should and will be challenged. My Catholic school education is my anchor. And so I encourage all of you to consider a Catholic education for your children and your grandchildren. This is only more relevant now in these times. Here at OLGC, there's a community that is teaching my children morals, faith, and community service. My children have been in school from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. since September, and they go to Mass in church every day. Even so, with the appropriate sanitization and social distancing, it's resulted in a 0.6% case of quarantines at this school. One reason, and this is my belief, my viewpoint only, is that we're a community here. We watch out for each other, and we consider the needs of other students and teachers above our own. My wife is on the PTA, and I see how hard her and the rest of the PTA work. I see the teachers and I see the principals making endless sacrifices for my children and our community. Consequently, there's a waiting list for every single grade at this school for families who want to be part of this community of shared sacrifice. And it's important because it's here that they'll establish the foundations for a world that is difficult, a world that is increasingly focused on stuff, on social media likes and their own self-gratification. We have shown here that if you're about something greater than yourself, people will gravitate to it. And I'm immensely proud to be from here and part of this faith community. Because I know that this experience here as a student at OLGC will benefit them as it has served me and continues to anchor me. Appreciate your time here this evening, for listening to me talk. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you.